go again.
What I took from Sidney was that he was the most prepared director I've ever worked with.
Police car for this side of the white line.
Everyone is involved. Everyone has a stake in making Sidney's movies.
Very Italian.
He takes your hand, he touches your face, he gives you signals all along that he's in your corner.
He easily settles into the head of an actor, even though he's director. So I think he has a real facility and sympathy for the actor.
If you look at this picture, you think it was shot by someone, you know, like in their 30s or 40s or even younger.
Kenny, we're going to be over here. This way. I didn't get the script from my agent. My memory of it is that Michael Serendi sent it to me directly. And, you know, the chances, I'd never heard of Michael. I didn't know what he had done. And the chances of a script arriving in an envelope and then winding up as your next picture is so rare that rarely that happens.
And then we got a call several days later saying that he loved it and wanted to meet. We were both huge fans of Sidney's. Michael, with his background as an actor, of course, admired Sidney's movies and the tremendous performances that he'd always gotten from his actors. He's directed 12 Angry Men, The Fugitive Kind, The Verdict, Murder on the Orient, you know, Serpico, Dog Day, Network. Lumet is, you know, one of the greatest living directors, if not the greatest living director in America. But I remember the first time that I met him in person when I first flew to New York. I was, of course, nervous. It's a very small office, and he's basically just got a single desk there, and there's no posters up. There's no trophy. You know, there's none of the statues. It's not that kind of, you know. It's basically him and a desk and some scripts. You walk in, and Sidney just embraces you, and it's just remarkable how such a powerful and iconic man can immediately make you feel at ease. In the discussion, I called it a suspense thriller. And he corrected me and he called it a melodrama.
The thing that was so totally attractive was what Kelly had basically put there, which was just one hell of a story, a really smashing melodrama.
And I said, no, it's a suspense thriller. You know, it's a crime film. You know, it's a caper film. And he goes, no, it's a melodrama.
It's interesting. Melodrama is such a sort of dishonored genre now. It's considered cheap, and I love it.
I remember as a kid, melodrama was, you know, the mustache and the bow tie, you know, the good guy and the bad guy, the good guy and the bad guy, the good guy and the bad guy.
What melodrama means to most people my age is it's another word for overacting. You know, that's how I came to melodramatic. It's soap opera, you know. But Sidney is a different. What melodrama means, you know, it's like life ramped. It's life amped to the 11.
Don't. You know, in a well-written drama, the characters are going to determine the story. In a melodrama, the story is going to determine the characters. And that's not just a switch on words.
It just came apart, Andy. Oh my God, Andy. What the fuck am I gonna do?
And so it was good to re-educate myself to what the meaning of that word and what it means, you know, that you're really dealing with heightened stakes. You know, and an inevitability of tragic drama taking place.
I say to the actors on the first day of rehearsal, look, I may push this to a point where you feel, oh my God, I feel so phony in this. Don't worry about that, because that's part of melodrama. You just make it as convincing as you can. If I push it too far, that's going to be my fault. But if I keep the line, that border, just to the point before belief collapses, then we've got it right.
It is a challenge for the actor, and that's why the reminder was so good, because it's like, it's not about you. This plot's moving forward. Get on the train.
I think it goes all the way back to the Greeks. You know, what are you going to do when this Oedipus Meshuggah walks in and with his having torn his eyeballs out, with hugging his daughters who whom he sired with his mother. I would think that's a rather good melodramatic plot. And I love the intricacies of melodrama. And the more ingenious the plot, the better.
It's Mom and Dad's story.
That's what I said. The mom and pop operation.
When I got the script, they were not brothers. They were just friends. And I felt that in order to make this work the way I wanted it to, that I had to just ratchet up the intensity as highly as I could. And a very quick way of doing that was to make them siblings, which would immediately involve a family dynamic, a change in the relationship with the father and the mother. It would make the whole thing more fraught.
Let it go. Let it go.
When he made them brothers, he really did create that heightened tragedy. You know what I mean? Because it's one thing for your friend to be sleeping with your wife and you to be pulling off this deal. It's another for it to be your brother.
You know I know.
What do you know?
I know.
He also pared things down. There were some things that were just simply taken out that he felt were extraneous. There was a situation with Andy and Gina, Phil's character, and Marissa's character. In the original screenplay, they had a child, and Sidney eliminated that. So it was a combination of what he added, but almost as importantly, it was what he took out of it. A lot of what came out of the discussion between all of us was really, you know, to make sure that these actors came from the same fabric.
It's a New York film, shot in New York. I think all of us, except for Albert, live in New York. And Marissa, I think, just moved to LA or something like that. But she's been, you know, she's as old as I am. She's a New Yorker, you know. She's doing a play actually here now. And that's where we're all kind of theater beasts.
I feel like the theater gives me the grounding and keeps me alive, basically. And film kind of gives me the thrill. It's like a one-night stand. But I enjoy being around people who love it so much.
Cinema is a director's medium, but theater is the actor and the writer's medium. And Sidney cares about that, which is why he gets along with actors and writers, you know, because he doesn't take them for granted and he respects that medium. And when he casts this movie, who's in it? Me, Phil Hoffman, Marissa Tomei, Albert Finney, Rosemary Harris, Brian O'Byrne, Amy Ryan, Michael Shannon. These are all theater rats.
For me, because I came from the theater, it's the place where I start. It's my starting point. And also when I was doing live television, that same process was at work, because in both the theater and live television, what's happening is that you're making your dramatic selection in advance. This piece is about this. You don't do the piece and then discover what it's about. You start with the discovery.
Just think. I know. It's too late to think. It's too late. This is our future.
The rehearsal schedule was much the same as I have on any other movie. 2 weeks. Sometimes, if I'm dealing with very complex characters, I'll rehearse longer. Long Day's Journey, I rehearsed 4 weeks. And the rehearsals are very much like a play. We sit around a table for 2 days, 3 days, whatever it'll take, breaking down the characters, breaking down the scenes, reading the script over and over.
And you're reading through it, and you're talking scene to scene, relationships, behavior. And then you get on your feet and start to talk about intent and action and what you're doing. And it's really just like a play. I mean, that's how you get into it, you know.
And it's all taped out in a big hall on the Lower East Side that is taped just like when you go into a rehearsal room on a play. And so you know where the bed is going to be, it's marked out, and you know where the door is going to be, it's marked out. So you have your spatial sense, and you get comfortable. It would be your apartment in the film anyway. It's somewhere where you've lived. So you want to know that space intimately.
I benefited enormously from the rehearsal process. First of all, it's a good chance to find out if I'm right or wrong. But the main thing I get is, there are so many main things. I get to have a knowledge of how that actor works. It's not the actor's job to work the way I work. It's my job to work the way the actor works.
That kind of thorough rehearsal, very unusual. But there's directors who are really good at giving direction, you know what I mean, understanding how to think like an actor and therefore understanding how to give direction.
I find out about my own confidence in the actor. And the actors, and the big thing, the actor's confidence in me. And my taste. They're learning about my taste, which may or may not be right, bad or good, but they know that's what they're going to be living with for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Sidney's smart enough to know that 90% of what makes a movie work or not is whether you find the right tone. You know, shed in one light, something is funny when it shouldn't be funny. Seen from this angle, it's tragic, too tragic, shouldn't be that tragic.
So all of those emotional communications are solved in the rehearsal process. Because once you get on set, it's very hard to establish that because there's so much work to do. Mike, my friend, would you just get a gnat's 2 inches to your right? Excellent. And that's your only limit on how far forward you can come.
Don't come further
Don't come
than
any
this.
further than that.
And what happens if I go back?
You're fine.
And I felt like the film was made by the time we started shooting. You know, it's like, you know, when they sculpt or something, that it had been cast already. You know, we were just going to pour the molten liquid into the shell we'd made. We knew this is where this happens, that's where that happens. You break down there, you do there, you did. This relationship works that way.
I am standing here with my life going down the fucking toilet.
Fuck you. I'll do it alone. You know, you can sit here and wait till you go to jail and take up the ass for the rest of your fucking life.
No, just do. All right, hey, here. What's your idea? What's your idea?
People worry that much preparation can kill spontaneity. It's not true. In fact, it's just the reverse. Because what happens is that when you know where you are, when you're really grounded, because as you know, movies are never shot in sequence, but to know that on this scene my character should be here, on this scene my character should be here, that's an enormously liberating thing.
There's certain choices that have been made that everyone is kind of aware of, and you can play around in those choices. You don't necessarily have to do what transpired over those 2 weeks of rehearsal, but you have an idea.
What Sidney argues, and I think he's completely right about this, is that the rehearsal process actually allows the actors to be freer to happen onto what he calls the happy accidents while shooting.
And one of the best examples of that is the robbery scene where Ethan and Philip attack, you know, the drug dealer, and then they have to kill the guy in the bed. And there's a scene where, you know, he comes back out, he goes, "Are we okay?"
Are we good? Let's go.
And that line wasn't in the original script. And Ethan gives this like weird half smirk saying, "Yeah." And that's what he would call one of his mistakes that you hope for.
When Philip really has his first breakdown, where his character first sort of cracks, that was shot with 2 cameras. So Marissa was able to react to what Phil was doing, and Sidney was able to capture it.
You can be spontaneous and can throw things out and have new things happen on a set and have them happen quickly.
It's not fair! All my life, I've been afraid of becoming like him. All my life with you, and it's not fair. You can't just say sorry and make it all go away. It's too late.
It's one of the most extraordinary scenes of acting that I've ever been involved with, and I've been involved with some pretty good ones. And one of the very interesting things, too, to me is I had 2 cameras going so that they wouldn't have to do it again, and one on Marissa and one on Philip. And what's extraordinary is what she did during that scene.
And
one other thing the rehearsals do, which is of no concern with the actors, is that as I'm rehearsing, I slowly evolve into the style in which I'm going to shoot the movie.
On Monday, they'll start with payroll. So you're up first, Andy.
Great.
Look, the only reason to me that I'm interested in style is, does it help me tell the story better?
You're going along on this ride because of the things that Sidney's doing stylistically that are taking you and manipulating you on this ride. And he's so good at it that you're unaware of it.
Coupled with this, what I hoped would be enormously intense, emotional story, that it be set against absolutely banal, bourgeois, dopey backgrounds. Shopping mall, totally forgettable. Apartment, totally forgettable. The only 2 sets that had any Baroque quality to them at all was the dope dealer's apartment and that little bedroom in Rio where the fancy sex was going on. And that's because those are the 2 things that really define Andy. That's what he wants out of life. And so those visually are supposed to stand out a little from the rest of the visual background.
Well, there's a scene in the film where Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, Andy, has just gone to his drug dealer's apartment for a fix. And he's seated in the drug dealer's living room with the drug dealer in the background at his desk doing a little bit of business. And he has a monologue where he's talking ostensibly to the drug dealer who's sitting behind him, but really, if you analyze the way Sidney shoots the scene, he's talking to us. He's talking to the audience. And Sidney does the scene in a single take that starts out with the camera sort of high and in a medium shot. And almost imperceptibly, the camera slowly moves in, pedestals down, and dollies around so that at the end of the scene, the camera is right up next to Phil, and the focal length has changed, and the character in the background of the drug dealer is now compressed and out of focus in the background. And it's an incredibly stylized moment in the film, but you don't notice it, you don't realize it while it's happening because it works so perfectly with the emotion of what's going on in the scene.
One of the absolutely baffling and amazing things about Sidney is, unlike even guys like Scorsese or Spielberg, guys who are younger than he is, he's totally leapt into the digital world. You know, he's understood that the way that cinema is moving is towards this land of DV, and to this, he shot this movie entirely HD.
Film people get horrified when I say this, but anything you can get on film, I can get on high def. Quicker, easier, and with more control. And I don't know of a director who isn't frustrated at the cumbersomeness of how cumbersome it is to make a movie, how much light you need. I don't need that much light in high def. My focal depth is much greater, and my color control.
It's a sign, in a way, of a really limber mind. and a really curious mind.
There are only 3 forms of energy, if you remember from your high school physics class. You've got thermal, which is heat, you've got chemical, and you've got electromagnetic, which is what light is. With film, you are going from electromagnetic, which is what light is, to chemical. It's recorded on a chemical base, on a different energy form. And there is a loss between what your eyes saw and what the film saw. In high def, I'm staying electromagnetic all the way. I start with light. It is recorded as light, a bunch of zeros and ones, breaking down the light into zeros and ones, and then when it's projected, it's still electromagnetic. In the meantime, back up Albert's car so that the back of it is right here.
Sidney's process makes for a very smooth shoot. The first take we did was a shot, not terribly important shot, but a relatively complicated shot. It was a shot where Ethan gets up from his little cubicle, walks around the back of the cubicle farm in the middle of the office and around and up past camera and past the reception desk and out the door. And of course, this is what Sidney chooses to be the first shot of the day, of the first day of shooting. It really set the tone for the whole thing because it took less than a half an hour to set up the shot. We did 1 take, and Sidney said, "Cut, moving on." And everybody on the crew, this little chuckle just kind of went through the entire crew, and everybody just said, "Yep, okay, strap yourselves in, this is how it's gonna be."
We also worked at such a clip. You know, it was so quick that it was just doing our work, really, just almost always just being in character, not because you're being in character all the time, but because the next shot is up.
Yeah, the hardest thing was keeping up with him. You know, the poor guys out building the sets, you know, had to like sort of go into overdrive just to keep up with Sid.
Why don't we go from the beginning? But in place, please, because the shots are rather critical. It's so hard. You know, people never realize how physically hard movies are to make. End of the day, I'm tired. And I'm glad that I'm that organized that I rarely go overtime because I'm too tired to go overtime. I work very hard for the 8 hours there, if I'm there 8 hours. Very often I finish in 7 and 6 hours, and that's more than enough.
Cut! Cut!
If you didn't know Maida, you would think a 30-year-old man made this movie. It definitely, it doesn't, this film doesn't smack of an older man trying to make it. This movie is so infused with such youthful vigor.
By the time the cameras are rolling, Sidney has taken everybody's input, processed it, and he's decided what kind of movie he wants to make. And it is absolutely true that everyone is making the same movie, but don't be confused. Everyone is making Sidney's movie. Most directors, okay, I want this, and I got to get you. His thing is very seductive. It's very in a very good way, in a very creative way. It's about building trust.
You know, Sidney's approach to his chutzpah, his heart, all of that's a very, very New York qualities.
Sidney's an actor's director that he knows good acting. He knows good writing. And if you know good writing and what good acting is, you don't need to do much else.
Cut!